So Huntington Beach is being sued for the second time. The first time was in 2019. They lost. They're being sued again. They basically don't want to follow the state's
No, they're not
housing requirement.
cooperating.
They're not
Yeah.
cooperating. They're also not abiding by the builder's remedy. They're basically ignoring all of the rules, and AG Bonta and Governor Newsom aren't having it.
Mm-hmm.
So now this begs the question, what is the solution? And Kim was raising the interesting point of, I would never expect to be able to live in an expensive place, let's just say like Huntington Beach or
Right.
Atherton or whatever. And my question is, why? They have created this sort of zone now where you can live a great life, have all the property you want because you're at a certain income level. And then what happens to the rest of the state of California? If we allow that to happen, if that mentality is actually accepted by people like the governor and the attorney general, which is basically what you're saying. You're saying that places like Huntington Beach should be allowed to stay as they are, and the rest of California can pick up the slack.
Well, what happens if you live in a community that, I mean, and there's the expectation, right? I don't expect to be able to live in Beverly Hills or Atherton in this lifetime, and that's okay with me. I'm fine where I am, whatever. Like that,
Why do you think that is the way it is, though? Why do you think that Beverly Hills or Atherton is that way? Why do you think it's so expensive to live there?
Because there are mansions and property values increase because all the wealthy people move there. And it does, in effect, lock everyone else out. Let me read you the story that came over on the wire this morning. Apparently, there's a new effort underway to make housing a human right in California.
Sounds like that sounds normal to me.
California could become the first state to add that to the state constitution. If lawmakers approve a new bill, voters would get to make the final decision. The assemblyman behind this says if you don't have housing, everything else in your life suffers. But he points out it doesn't necessarily guarantee that the government would provide housing for free. So housing is a human right. But when you say housing is a human right, that may be an apartment in Bakersfield. You've got a roof over your head. You've got shelter from the storms, whatever. It might not be that you get to live in Beverly Hills.
Okay. And I agree with you. I think it's more along the lines of if it's a human right, then perhaps our focus, our efforts, our funding goes to making sure that people have that human right met. Right. And I do agree with it. If you don't have housing, it's the hierarchy of needs we learned a long time ago in school. You need housing, you need food. If without those basic things, nothing else seems to matter. A lot of you are asking where exactly this housing is supposed to go in Huntington Beach. And it all has to do with them restricting ADUs and these granny units and those sorts of things. They don't even want that. It's not as if they're, building all these apartment units and all those sorts of things. They don't even want that. So that's my problem. Now, it's kind of, I don't know if it's like this historical or existential type question where we have been convinced that because you might have a 90210 zip code, that you're here and everyone else is here, and don't expect to live there because we're rich and you're just not. And so because history has taught us that just means we can drive in, we can, waste lots of parts of our life to serve the people that live in these areas, because the people that live in these areas still want the lower income people to be there to serve them. They just don't want to live next to them. They don't want to provide that human right of housing to those that are still part of their community. Just, when the clock hits 5:00 or the restaurant or the bar is closed, go back to where you belong. That's the attitude I would describe some of these places having. And I don't think it's right. And I don't think we should continue to live in this kind of world they've created where we're supposed to accept that. Like, oh no, that's the rich area. Don't touch the rich people. They live on the hill. It's fine. Leave the hill alone. We'll just get the density and the health impacts and the congestion and the homelessness and everything else because we're the poor people. And so we'll just deal with that. Does that make sense? I mean, I know I'm being a little
Yeah.
harsh with the point of view here, but that's basically what these rich people are saying. We have convinced you that this is our area because we're rich. And so you can't live here. You're poor. That's ridiculous, in my opinion. I mean, Nick says exclusivity is part of the appeal. Areas like
Yeah.
Atherton wouldn't be as quote unquote nice if they were popular like other areas. I mean, just saying that blows my mind. It's people. God, if you bring all those people in, God,
Mhm.
it just won't be as nice now. Yeah.
It won't.
There's a lot of people. Well, so what? Other places get to become worse because
I'm
Atherton
not saying
say,
it's right or
hi.
wrong. I'm saying that seems to be the way it is. And I
Well, yeah.
personally wouldn't have an expectation that, I'm going to be able to move to Tiburon or Belvedere here in the North Bay. It's not happening.
Because
But
you've
I
been
will,
convinced throughout history that you can't afford to live there.
I think some of these communities, I think, is it Belvedere? Maybe Tiburon, they have cameras. There's only one way into town and one way out. And
Mhm.
they know if you belong there or not. The police know, like, who's this person coming in? They know.
And
So
that's
yes, it's I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying that's the exclusivity, right? That's the way it is in those areas. And I don't know if they're going to, build an affordable housing complex of apartments just to be equal. I think that when you're paying 20, 30 million dollars for a house, you expect your neighbor to be pretty far away
they
and their
probably
house
already
to
are,
look like
though.
yours. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are. I mean, if you have a $20 million house, you're not looking out your bedroom window and seeing a house right there. You know
No.
it, and I know it.
Mhm.
So what are they fighting? Right? They have the space. They just don't want you to be in any other space that even if they don't own it, it's just
Yeah.
not there. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. It sounds like they're segregating us. There are historical aspects to how some of these city and county lines have been drawn over the years. I just feel like it's kind of like we're stuck in the matrix of just believe it. It's just the way it always is. And yet we have a major problem in this state, and it is a lack of housing. And somewhere is going to have to deal with it. Some cities are going to have to meet the demand. And so I feel like some of these rich areas are just like, let them deal with it. We'll just handle the lawsuits and we hope it will go away. But Newsom's not having it. He is not having it. And I think that Huntington Beach has put a huge bullseye on themselves. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out and what kind of message it's going to give to other areas, possibly like Atherton or other areas that
Mhm.
may be watching very closely to see if Huntington Beach gets away with it.